And yeah, that's it. Top left, we are live. That's perfect. Welcome, everybody. Luckily, we haven't had any technical issues this morning. And I am very happy to welcome everybody to our first live networking event here on the 17thfloor.com. As a reminder, the 17th Floor is an online community focused on the growing practice of human capital management, which gathers human resources, accounting, and payroll professionals together for peer-to-peer engagement, education, and ideally mentorship. Every 2 weeks, we host a live networking chat featuring special industry guests in which we and you, our members, chat about our experiences uplifting businesses by elevating the well-being of our employees, or in general, human capital management. My name is Sam Fiorella. I am a member of the 17th Floor Community Management team here, and I'll be acting as the moderator for today's chat. As this is the first of an ongoing series, we thought it would be best to start with a discussion on networking, right? Makes sense. And why your professional net worth is so tied up in your network. Joining me today is Lisa Nister, who is coming to us from the beautiful province of Saskatchewan, Canada. Really love that province, so pretty. Lisa is a member of the 17th Floor Board of Advisors, but by day, she's an experienced human resource analyst and, of course, holds a certified payroll manager designation by the National Payroll Institute. Check out the Board of Advisors tab under the directory tab in the 17th Floor to connect with Lisa and other Board of Advisor members. And our Lisa and my guest today for our networking chat is Jill Fagan. Welcome, Jill. Jill is a seasoned recruiter and ICF coach, certified in EQI 2.0 assessments. And we're going to have to ask more about that because I had to look it up. I didn't know what that meant. She helps individuals find great jobs, exploring what's most important to them, which I think is critical in today's world. I want to talk a little bit about how those align in our conversation today. And develop their leadership presence. But then on the other side, of course, Jill helps organizations recruit great talent, define their company values, and build resilience cultures, which is, again, really interesting given where we are today. So welcome to both you ladies.
It's great to be here.
Yes, thanks, Sam.
Wonderful. So why don't we just jump into it? I'm going to put the first question to you, Jill. Our topic is your network is your net worth. It's the reason that we asked you to be our special guest speaker today, given your experience. But I think we really do need to start with the definition of networking. Like, I've heard it used so many different ways. How would you define it?
I agree. It's used in a lot of different ways, and depending on the context. From a business context, it's when you're making connections and creating relationship. It's not just having someone in your contacts. I think what's important and what we'll talk more about today is the relationship part. To build a relationship is when you have a connection. Otherwise, you're just having a contact.
So let's explore a little bit why networking is so important in your career development in that case. And then I'll put that to you as well, Jill, but then Lisa, obviously I'd like you to get, what's your practical experience with this?
Well, in your career development, I mean, there's a number of ways. There's first off, you learn from the people you work with, whether it's your boss, whether it's the people you work with immediately. But then there's also people outside of that group. There's connections in business organizations, connections like here in this network, connections on LinkedIn. You want to read what they're posting, what trends are going on in the market. And all of this is going to help you build upon your career. And also 83% of jobs are not even posted. And even more so in a pandemic where you're not able to really get a sense of a person or a sense of a culture of a place to work as immediately, even now more than ever, hiring managers or recruiters will go to their network and say, who do you know? Who do you think is a good fit here? You know this culture, our organization, this boss. Who do you think would fit in with this? So a lot of times the reason your resume never gets responded to is because someone internally has referred someone else.
Yeah, and in my experience, actually, Jill, I found that knowing somebody really even helps to develop the skills that you need to get your next job that you're looking at. And like you said, I was actually surprised to hear that it's 83% of jobs are not posted. That's a really big number. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, I have been pulled in and just said, I think you'd be a really great fit for this job. So I'd like you to come and work for me. And to develop your skills, I'd even like you to take these courses. So I think even just for that and helping you to determine what you need to hone your skills and to learn and to fit into that job, I think that's interesting. And I really like that you said that it's not just somebody in your contacts. I think that's a really interesting thing too, and that you distinguish that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people connect on values. What's important to them. If you were to look at my network, you would sometimes find the most, like I'm in the network with the crazy knitting ladies from Chatham, but how we connected was around their values. They're always posting about doing kind things for their community, doing volunteer work, which is a huge value of mine. So I'm interested in them. It may not help me in my business, so maybe this is a little offside, but it's similar with your LinkedIn contacts, with your networks. Like here, you may all join this network because you're part of similar career pathing, but when you go under that, you may find there are certain causes that people within a group support, and then you'll watch them tribe together. So the more you network or really create relationship, the more you uncover that part of it and that part of people, and you get to understand them and you find your tribe.
I too am a little surprised at the 83%. I knew that it was a high number. Mm-hmm. I didn't really understand didn't know how high it was. That's really interesting. But it really opens up the question then, how do you position yourself to be considered then? I mean, if you're looking for career advancement, I think most of us are. I think it's a small percentage of people that are just happy staying in an entry-level job. We all want to advance in our career, if just to make more money, if nothing else, right? Even if it's not a personal desire to climb the corporate ladder. So aside from actually learning the skills, I mean, like the obvious is you need to be good at it, and you need to update your education, update your skills. So we're just going to assume that that's there. But having them, it sounds like it's not enough, and it's not enough to be looking at job boards. You need to let the world know that you are interested or that you are qualified. Through networking, Jill, how can somebody do that? What are some of the tips and tricks that you can share?
So, and yes, that's very true. And I the thing is with, the wild web is, it's made so much more accessible. And that's the good news. And the bad news is it's made so much more accessible. So, at least with my clients, they will post a job and they will get thousands of resumes or hundreds of resumes, depending on how global they are. And they don't have time to go through all the majority, and I mean 99% are unqualified. So the amount of work, so they will call me. I'm working on a search and it's not posted anywhere because they don't want, so that's, the good news is, again, there's wide reach. The bad news is there's wide reach. So this is sort of speaks to my earlier point where networking comes in, because it will be those sort of communities and tribes that where you get your attention, even if being with, the 17th floor, being with payroll and HR organizations, being with this organization. If you were to see that on someone's resume, all of a sudden there's a connection. You have this sort of what you call interim reality, because you're connected. You already think they're qualified, and then you're willing to talk to them. They may not be, but that sort of opens the door for you. So the more connections you can create, the higher your chances, other than just a resume. So sorry, I sort of went off here, but getting back to your question, how can you do that? The most obvious is still LinkedIn. It's what the recruiters use. It's what companies use. There are lots of new tools. I wish I could speak to them, but I don't use them, so I can't. If someone would like to educate me on them, that would be great. But I find LinkedIn keeps me busy enough. So when you look at people that you're following, experts in the industry, the president of marketing, CMO, the head of payroll or CFO, head of HR of different organizations, connect with them, like their posts, comment on their posts, comment intelligently on their posts, or just like it. If you're, so try to engage, reaching out to someone and kind of going, immediately to, a VP, or, Lisa, if someone reached out to you that you had never heard of before and asked for your time, you're a really wonderful person, but you may not have the time for every request. So that's why creating the relationship first is very valuable. Someone who's liking your posts, commenting, so you do start creating something there.
So I have a question, Jill. When it comes to creating your network, is it okay to outright ask somebody for a job, like a new network? Is that something, or is there, like you alluded to, that it's valuable to create the connection and the relationship, but is it okay to just outright ask somebody for a job that you just added to your network, or trying to add to your network?
You can ask, and they may not answer. Do you know what I mean? If there's a job, it's kind of like this. People reach out to me all the time. I do my best to get back to everyone. I have 16,000 connections. I can't always, but if I actually have an opening for what they're asking me, you bet I get back to them right away. So there's also, there's a couple of things. There's your expectation. If I've had people, say, oh, I sent my resume and a note to this organization, and they never even got back to me. And it's kind of like, that's okay. Right. So, don't carry it. That's fine. So yes, you can do it, but it's more powerful if you've been connected with that person already. Hey, here's someone who's always liking my posts. Here's someone who's commenting on this. So then when they reach out to me, I'm more likely to give them a little more attention when they don't need anything.
Go ahead, Lisa. I think you were going to try and say something.
I was actually just going to ask if you find that your virtual connections, or I should say, your non-virtual connections are more powerful than your virtual connections?
Good question.
For the most part, I would say yes, but there are some exceptions depending on the amount of time I've spent with someone and the context. And again, there are clients and people I've worked with, especially in coaching. I have because of the context, a very deep connection. So it's really going to depend on what the relationship is, but for the most part, absolutely. When you work with someone in office, you actually have a little water cooler conversation. You ask about your weekend, you see how things are going. If you jump on a meeting of 10 people, there's no time for any of that, really.
I also want to, that opens up a bunch of other questions that I want to follow up on, including, like the digital versus in real life type connections, and how the pandemic has changed that now that we're not getting together as often anymore, that our personal networks are shrinking and our digital networks are increasing, or at least the opportunities for those are increasing. But before we do that, I want to reach out to those listening. If you're listening live today, this is also going to be recorded, of course, and so you might be watching this in replay or listening to it on our podcast. But if you are watching live and you have any questions for Lisa or for Jill, please feel free to type into the comments, and we will see them, and we'll pull up your question here and make sure that the ladies address them. I do like, so I got a whole bunch of questions here that I've been noting as we're going through. I like, Jill, that you said it depends on your communities and your tribes that you belong to, right? And I think that is a really interesting tool that we can learn or practice. We can learn from the sales world, where, what's becoming popular now is just direct selling, and cold calling is not necessarily the way to get somebody's attention, because there's so many people doing that, right? There's a soft sell that social media and digital technologies has allowed, which is just join in on conversations. You don't necessarily need to sell yourself. You just need to participate in those conversations. And by answering questions or showing your face, not only are you elevating the chance or increasing the chance that somebody will respond to you if you do reach out for an opportunity, because they're familiar with your name, they've seen your profile, but they've already gotten a sense of who you are and might actually reach out to you, right? That's something that modern sales teams do. They spend their time commenting on corporate blogs. And then so that person who manages the blog looks at that name, looks at that business. Oh, they're interesting. They have something smart to say. And then they'll go look them up. Is that something in your practice that you recommend? I know you touched on this a little bit. So if you can expand on that, I would appreciate it. Is, what is that power, and how should you be commenting, and where should you be commenting or answering questions or offering your opinion, and where shouldn't you?
Absolutely. And two things. So to answer the first part is, there's always suggested followers on LinkedIn. So, whether it's Bill Gates, whether it's Brene Brown, the Dalai Lama, Barack Obama, where your interests and your values lie, follow those people. And even a few maybe that you disagree with, because it's always interesting to see the other side of the coin. And be careful how you comment on those if they make you really angry. But you may find contacts within that group that you sort of start sharing similar views with. You may be recommending, if you find these articles are really valuable, sharing these articles with a comment. It's networking can take a lot of time. I spend my whole day on LinkedIn. I will, at least every couple of months, try to write a post, which takes me a lot of time, and I love doing it. But there's also an easy way, which is to comment on a Harvard Business Review article and share it with your network. Then people start sort of seeing what's important to you, what you value. Start sharing other people's articles. People love when you share their articles and you comment on them. I mean, it's kind of a nod, an acknowledgement. Thanks for sharing that. It's been really valuable to me. If you have a point of view on it, and that's where you can start creating a relationship. And then at some point you can say, hey, I'm really interested in the stuff that you've posted. I love what your company is doing. I would be very interested in finding out more about it. If there's ever an opportunity, could you introduce me to HR? Would you be willing to have a virtual coffee? And again, don't worry if they say no. There's a lot of people who are Zoomed out. But that's where you've kind of created a relationship. It's kind of like when you go to your neighborhood bar and you see the same people there every now and then. Eventually there gets to a point where you feel like saying, hey, and you sit down with them and have a drink, coffee, whatever. So to sort of do that with social media can be very valuable.
Nope, can't hear you, Sam.
Well, that's embarrassing. I spent, for those of you that weren't on before we went live, I just was telling everybody, make sure that, you go on mute and then you go off mute. And then, of course, I did it. We need that sign. Have you guys been on the Zoom calls where, somebody holds up a sign, you're on mute? 17th floor is actually one of the best places to do that, I'm finding, right? It's a new community that's designed specifically for that. And unlike LinkedIn, which is very generic, very large, this is a very niche audience specifically for payroll, accounting, and HR professionals. But Lisa, you want to comment?
Well, first of all, I'll just say the 17th floor is a great place. There's some forums on there that you can comment on and ask questions. So I think that's a really great place to do some of your networking. Just one of the things that Jill has really resonated with me is that it's okay for you to reach out and to make your, advances, but just to manage your expectations and to realize that they may not get back to you, and that's okay. And I think that's really great that you said that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there was something else I wanted to mention on that, Sam, and that was when you said about how the pandemic has affected networking.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, actually, because we are spending more time, and you also mentioned Zoomed out. I know we as a company here, my company, we are completely Zoomed out. We're sick of it. And we're starting to come back into the office, but I know a lot of organizations have moved to permanent work from home or hybrid environments. So how has the last 2 years changed how we network?
Again, there's trying to find the balance. It's made so much more accessible, now, whereas, you attend a virtual conference versus, flying to San Francisco, forget the time and the money. It's now that much more available. So now you have people from all over the world, very diverse backgrounds. So there's just like this amazing, wealth of information and connections being shared. But and in one way you can say, well, you're getting more than a business card. You're actually getting someone's LinkedIn profile. You can, you're getting their resume, so who you've met. But again, the connection virtually takes a little more work. So when you get some frequency, when you do find, even though you've met 1,000 people, don't expect to be connected or networked with 1,000 people. You will find a couple of people who their message has resonated with you. I attended Wisdom 2.0, which is a tech and mindfulness conference. it sounds crazy, right? But there was everyone there from, Tibetan monks to the head of LinkedIn, to SAS, Google. And it was really sort of around mindfulness and mental health. And Tristan Harris, I don't know if you've heard of him. He wrote The Social Network. It's a series on. So he was speaking, and he had this interview with John Kabat-Zinn, and he just really had an impact on me. I sent him a note on LinkedIn, and I just said, hey, I know what you're doing in San Francisco is really cool. And, I'm pretty networked in Toronto and especially with the tech market. If there's any way I can support you, please let me know. And he reached back and connected me to his head of development. And we started a chapter in Toronto. So I went from that conference and I really only met 2 people, and he was one of them. So, it's about the volume, and it's about, again, it's not about the volume. It's about the relationship and connecting on what's important to you, because networking is human, no matter how digital it is. It's the human piece that makes us connect and makes us have that relationship.
So what I'm hearing, if I can just quickly recap here, is, definitely things are changing. Technology has both hindered and enabled our abilities. The good thing is that even the introverts out there who may not feel comfortable walking up to a group of people at a conference and just introducing themselves and starting a conversation can do it in a soft manner by just commenting on someone's blog post or commenting on someone's question on the forum on the 17th floor, or joining a discussion forum on LinkedIn. That it doesn't have to be, you don't have to feel the pressure to talk to 16,000 people, that it only takes one. And you could do it at your pace, which is good. And that, more people are comfortable with online technology and online chatting and online networking as a result of the pandemic. So that makes it a little bit easier. People are a little bit more receptive today to that type of thing, which is great. But again, as a result of the pandemic, one of the things that we're seeing is that there's a blurred line between work hours and personal hours. And so one of the things about networking that I find that is similar to the business, where you wake up at 6 and you don't have to go into the office, so you're sitting there in your PJs and you start doing some emails, or maybe you take an hour off in the afternoon and you work an hour later at night to make up for having going grocery shopping at 2:00 in the afternoon, or whatever people do when they're supposed to be working from home. So there seems to be a blurring of lines between communicating and emailing and doing business after hours versus in hours. Is that the same thing with networking in this modern era, when it comes to reaching out and communicating with people after hours or on the weekend, be it on LinkedIn or other social networks?
Yeah, the rule is there's no rules, but there is being respectful, and asking permission. I think you kind of have to read the room. We also have people working in different time zones, so I try to not network on the weekends unless it's a social volunteer thing, but I don't answer emails on the weekend, and I don't send emails on the weekend. And when it comes to early hours, I also get up at, I'm sitting at my computer at 6. I used to send early emails. I thought it was quite impressive in my younger days to show people that I was working at 7 a.m. Until I realized it was really just annoying. And especially if not everyone turns off their notifications and they get pings. So the first thing is manage your technology and turn off your notifications, but some people don't. So I try not to send emails too early in the morning, or I turn my own notifications off. But on the weekends, I keep it. I don't respond, and I don't check my emails. At the same time, there's a lot of mental health concerns, and it's real. And there are so be mindful. Some people get up and they work on the weekends. That just turn it off. You manage. The communication goes both ways. I'm kind of going off a bit here, but the communication goes both ways. So there's recognizing people's boundaries, but more important, it's setting your own boundaries. If someone who lives a completely different lifestyle than me is working from Costa Rica or the UK, sends me an email at 3 a.m. I try, I might get annoyed because my messenger goes off, but then I have to remind myself, I have my messenger on, turn it off. I'm sleeping. They're just doing what they're doing. So I kind of went a little all over with that answer, but there was just a lot of it.
I think that's a great point, is that you have to realize that you need to manage your own boundaries. I think honestly, for me personally, during work hours or after work hours, it's kind of the same, because if I'm busy during my day at work, I have meetings, I can't actually get to I can't get to the networking or answer stuff right away. So I think for me, it's either way. I think I still have to set those same boundaries. So it's important that way for me.
Yeah. I'm realizing a lot more people are putting at the end of their signature. During these times, we realize that you may be receiving this email outside of your decided working hours. If that is the case, please respond when it's appropriate for you to respond.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I have a number of clients who have that on their email because they have people working, traveling, who have kids who work on do their work on Saturdays, right? So.
But I think this brings us back to how we started this. And so we are getting close to wrapping up here. So for those of you listening live or watching live, please feel free to ask any questions or share your experiences with any of this, positive or negative, in the comments. Well, even if you're not watching live, if you're watching this on replay, add your questions or comments in the comments below on the 17th floor. And whether it's Lisa, Jill, or one of our community management teams, we could all join in and help keep this conversation going after this. But I think maybe a full circle to help wrap this up, I think that gets us back to definitions, because I think there's a difference between emailing somebody and saying, hey, I'm interested in learning more about your company, or can I, I'm looking for a mentor. Can we grab a coffee? And chatting on social media. And when I say social media, I'm talking about like LinkedIn or the 17th floor. Commenting on somebody's post. So, Lisa mentioned, we have these great forums on the 17th floor where people can ask questions around human capital management practices or HR practices or accounting practices or payroll strategy. You're on like the train home, or you're on a weekend and you just happen to be scrolling through and you see a question that you want to answer, or you want to ask a question. I don't think there's anything wrong with posting those types of messages, right? There's a difference between, I think, emailing somebody something and expecting an answer, a business question, or an email networking, or worse, a telephone call at 6 o'clock in the morning, versus taking that time to read through some social networks and not networking necessarily, but adding to the conversation, which, in turn becomes a soft networking. So that's kind of where I'd like to kind of leave it here. I think this is one of those topics that I think we can go on probably for hours. You were going to say something, Jill?
I have one thing that is I really want to share, and that is the most important sentence that I've learned from my mentor is, how can I help you? So when someone reaches out to me to network, I always come back with, how can I help you? How can I help you? And if I can't, I will tell them. If it's not appropriate, I will tell them. But the strongest, the thing about networking, just to remind everyone, is that it's mutually beneficial. So when you reach out to someone and you're asking for their support, also discuss how you can help them. So I just wanted to make sure
that's true. Being helpful is one of the best ways to get a response, right?
Mm-hmm. And being grateful.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm grateful to the two of you for taking the time and joining us on this first of our ongoing series of live networking chats. Like I was starting to say before, this is one of those topics that I think can go on and on and on. We can go down so many different paths, especially when it comes to technology and how it's changing the way that we work. And this is one of the things that we're going to continue to explore here on the 17th floor, whether it's in the articles, whether it's in the forum, or here in our biweekly networking chat. So for those of you listening live or watching later, please check out the schedule under our networking events, or please feel free to join these conversations that are happening every day in our online forums. And if you've got a suggestion for a topic or you want to be involved in one of these, please feel free to reach out to us. Keep the conversation going. We all look forward to having them with you here on the 17th floor or on our social communities. Until next time, Sam, Fiorella, Lisa, Jill, thank you very much.
Thank you.